Today, let's look at the SkyRC MC3000. This is an amazing charger, my favorite of all the ones I own. It can do anything I need. And it's such a complicated charger that we're going to try and get through this quickly. So hold on to your bananas. Here we go. First off, let's talk about the shape and build of it. It's not very large. Here's my hands next to it. You can see that it's, about hand size. And I also want to point out that it's got this great feet on the back here, right? And what's great about that is there's dual fans for cooling when you're discharging or doing storage or something like that. And so it lifts it up off the surface. I like to charge on this kind of like foam mat for, just in case there was a rupture or some kind of fire. And I think that, having those feet's amazing because it lifts it up off let's get some of these batteries out of the way. It lifts it up off the mat there. So you can see that wedge shape. So that's perfect. All right. Another thing that I like about this charger is the fact that the little clips or little end caps here, that they are pretty rigid compared to other chargers I've had. Some chargers, these can push very easily. This one, you got to kind of really muscle it. And I like that because I want some pressure on the battery. I want lower resistance. I want to charge better. So another thing is these buttons are clicky buttons. I don't know if that's a pro or con, but they're not membrane buttons. So when I press them, oh, by the way, before I do press it, this charger has so many features. It's got a screensaver. It's on a little Pong screensaver right now. This little ball kind of pops around and then hits things and, whatever. But when you first get it, it actually, the Pong screensaver will make noises. It goes beep, beep, beep. I turned that off immediately. That was kind of annoying. Now, if I cancel this, you'll see that the beeps are still on for the buttons. Let me make sure that I got a good exposure on the screen there. Notice that when I click, some beeps. So you get feedback with the beeps. You can turn that off, but they're definitely clicky, really obvious when you're pressing something. Okay, now let's take a look at the battery sizes it charges. So let's start with some little tiny guys like this 18350. How about this 14500? There you go. And 18650. That's normal battery. So let's say a little tiny 10440. All right. So there you go. Now notice one thing that I noticed was there's underneath, in between the clips here, there is a little band. See the silver band? That is for temperature check. This will see or at least cut the charging if the battery reads a certain temperature on that little band. Now, when you push these batteries all the way down, almost every size is perfect, when you push it all the way down, except for the 10440s. Notice it says no battery in bay 4. That's just because if you take a look, there's these little bumps here, these two little bumps. I'm not really hitting a bump, so I'm just going to lift the battery up a little bit. There we go. Whoops, there we go, like that. And now that I've lifted the battery up, I see I'm on that first of the two bumps. Now all of a sudden it's making positive contact and I'm reading the voltage of the battery. So just wanted to point out that's not a big deal, but if you slap it in there, if you just kind of go like this and it's only for the 10440s that I've noticed, it just doesn't make contact because that negative end wasn't on the little guy. So just lift it up, you're good. I don't even have to do the other side. It's just that side. All right, these are some standard size batteries. Let's look at some bigger batteries. Let's take a look at maybe a 21700. So it'll do all the way up to 21700 sizes and just. So nothing longer than 21700. If this was a protected 21700, why would you? But if it was, it would not fit in the charger. So that's something you should know. But I don't have any protected 21700s. All my 21700s are unprotected for maximum performance in my lights. Now, there's a size that's coming on the scene that people are looking for charger for, and that's this 26800, this big fatty here. It obviously won't fit this either, but then again, I don't know of really any chargers that will right now. There's this little magnetic chargers, the ones that clip on either end, but they just don't really work with this battery because this is a 7,000 milliamp hour battery, and those things are like less than an amp. So, I mean, I'm not charging for 10 hours on a battery. No, thank you. So, let's see here. What else? Let's take this little guy out and show that we can get a 26650 in here. So, a bigger diameter. And notice that the bays are wide enough that you can fit 4 26650s all the way across. So that's another thing. Sometimes chargers will allow you to fit 2 in and 2 slimmer batteries because these are actually overlapping into the bays. This one goes, 26650s all the way across. Now let's take a look at the chemistries and that we can charge. So I'm talking about lithium ions here because that's mainly what I use for my flashlights. But this thing really will do all the chemistries, meaning nickel metal hydride, NiCad, specifically ONOLOOPs, which ONOLOOPs are nickel metal hydride, but their chemistry is a little different. It does crazy chemistries I'm not even really aware of. Some that I am aware of. Like, for example, it also does lithium ion high voltage, which are the ones that terminate at 4.35 volts instead of 4.2. So this charger really does every chemistry I know of. Another thing I should point out is each bay is completely independent, meaning that you can charge 4 separate chemistries at once. You could do a nickel hydrate over here, nickel cadmium, lithium ion, and then, lipo high voltage or something like that. All right, let's take a look at the UI. First off, you'll notice that there's these 4 buttons at the bottom, and then there's 4 buttons at the top for the bays. And that's it. That's all the buttons on this thing. Now, it says setup embossed in the plastic right here. If you press and hold on this guy, you enter a setup menu. This setup menu has just a couple little features in here, but the one that we're going to look at first is this UI mode. So if I come down to this, I'm on advanced right now, and I use this charger only in advanced. When you first get it, it's probably going to be in dummy mode. So let's put it in dummy mode. What dummy mode does is it takes away any guesswork. You throw the batteries in, it figures out, it auto senses what the chemistry is. You see it's determined that these are all lithium ion, which they are, and then it will charge accordingly. It starts at 0.7 amps, and when you start charging them, it will actually figure out and adjust the amperage depending on what it thinks the capacity of the cell is, just based on how fast the current's going in there and how it sees the milliamps rising. And that's it. That's what you get. You get charging. You throw them in, hit charge, done. But there's 2 more modes. There is simple mode, which is kind of a hybrid between dummy mode and advanced. I'm not really going to go into simple either because if I just show you advanced, you can see all the options. So just note there's a simple mode where it has some of the advanced options if it's pared down. I'm going to go straight to advanced. I'm going to key that in. And now that we're in advanced mode, we've opened up these things called programs. Now, at first, programs kind of freaked me out a little bit because I'm like, what's a program? I've never seen that on a charger before. But now I love them. What it is you can set up the features of the complete charging model for 30 different preset programs. And 30 is a lot. I've got like 12 set up, and I had to come up with 12. Now, let me just walk you through this really fast. Let's take a look at this first battery right here. So if I select bay 1, you see bay 1 is now selected because we're on bay 1, and then we got program 1. Program 1 is set up to be a lithium ion chemistry. Here, let me just click into this. And that chemistry can be changed to anything you want. So for example, it can be, let me go this way. It can be lithium iron. It can be lithium ion high voltage, which is a 4.35, nickel metal hydride, nickel cadmium, nickel zinc, ONOLOOP, which as I said has a slightly different chemistry, and more, and it just goes on, okay? So there's all these different chemistries. Let's say you use 3 of these chemistries a lot, and you don't want to have to go through this entire menu every time you set up a program. You can literally, in another setup screen, remove some of these chemistries so they don't bother you. Now, that's interesting because, that's kind of a cool feature that I wouldn't have thought about. Like, I get the idea of going into the program and setting which chemistry you want, but actually omitting things from the menu so they don't bother you, it's neat. These little functions like this that make me love this charger, this charger works exactly the way I want. So I'm going to leave it on lithium ion. And now that it knows it's a lithium ion profile, it's going to assume certain things about the battery. Now, down here in mode, this is where you set up whether you want to charge it, discharge it, do a storage charge, do a test. See, watch, take a look. So refresh, storage, discharge, cycle. So that's, if you want to go through several times to try and refresh the battery, especially useful like on nickel metal hydride and NiCad. So let's set it up for charge. Now, the capacity, this is not a limit. I thought at first maybe this is a limit that when it hit 2,000, it would just cut off. That's not what this is. You put the capacity of the battery as rated on the side, and then it automatically chooses the current and other factors about the battery so that you don't overcharge it. Now, you'll notice that at a 2,000 milliamp hour battery, it's saying charge current of 1 amp. So watch, when I come up here and change this to, let's say, 2200, see it went to 1.1. So it's charging basically at a rate of 0.5 C. And I'm not going to go into 0.5 C, but it's just basically a ratio between the current and the capacity of the battery. And you don't want to exceed 1 C, so that would be 2 amps here for the 2 milliamp hours that the battery can take. Now, I want to point out that capacity, when you change this, it's setting this up just to be kind of helpful because people don't really kind of often know what, they should be charging the batteries at. But that is not a limit. And this one underneath it, the current, is independent anyways. So I can come down here and say, you know what? Yeah, okay. I set it up for 2,000. And as a result of being 2,000, it set up other things in here. See, other voltages and terminations and stuff. But the point is I can still go in here and say, yeah, that's fine. But I still want to charge it at, 2 amps or whatever. See, here we go. And another thing I should point out is, look at that. You can, this is a big thing that I'm going to say. You can change this by hundredths of an amp. That's amazing because sometimes when you're charging these really, really tiny batteries, you want that fine control. You can go all the way down to really low amounts. I believe the bottom is 0.05 amps. But why would you need something less than that? Because, considering the cutoff termination, we'll talk about that in a second. But anyways, so just note that it's highly configurable. You can get whatever you want in there. I'm going to actually cancel out of that. And that's another nice feature. Notice that as I'm changing these things, so I go in here, I enter this menu, I change something. If I go, oh, I don't want that, there's a little undo button. You hit the little square here, and it just undoes, but you're still in the menu. It didn't dump you out of the whole menu. Again, little things like this make the UI so fantastic to use. Now, I'm not going to go into every little thing here. That's not the type of video I'm doing. But I just want you to know that there's a lot of things in here. Like, for example, you can tell it how long to rest and then top the battery off again. You can tell it what the termination is. So, for example, watch down here. When I say termination, I don't just mean the voltage you're cutting it off at. For example, if you want to overcharge your lipos by going to 4.21, yeah, you could do that, right? Now, I haven't done insane testing with my digital multimeter yet. My assumption is that it's very accurate just based on factors like taking it out and using the voltage meters in the batteries and stuff like that. But here's what I want to say is, let's say that, let's go back down here. Let's say that we found that it was undercharging, right? Well, because of the target voltage here, you can set it to whatever you want. I just like that it's so configurable that you can overcome kind of, deficiencies in different models. I like that. Now, that's where the voltage is going to stop. That's the ceiling to it, right? But this termination, what's that? This is what the voltage dip is. What it reads that voltage dip on the graph and determines that it's full. Because remember, the way it's going to work here is it's going to charge these batteries up, hit the highest voltage it should be, 4.2 in this case, and then it's going to stay at 4.2 and keep putting current into the battery, milliamp hours, and when it detects a little voltage dip on the graph, that's when it knows it's reached capacity and it's full. So all the chargers do that. That's how they sense when these things are full. But usually that stuff is not only just hidden from you, but unconfigurable. In this situation, you can go down here and put it to whatever you want. You can make it a really small dip as 0.05 amps all the way to a larger dip. And a larger dip, larger termination dip is going to mean that it's going to kind of accept more into it. So a lot of times I actually think that when people say their battery chargers are not charging correctly, like undercharging, I think what it is this termination dip isn't large enough. It's triggering at a smaller dip, and the battery could have taken a little more. But that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying you can set it up. That's awesome. Let's see, what else do I want to go through here? So there's all kinds of features, this discharge reduce and restart voltage. I'm not even going to go into that stuff, but I mean, hopefully you're looking at this menu and going, wow, this thing can do a lot of stuff. Now, there are some safeties in here. For example, you can turn the cutoff voltage on. That's the thing where if the voltage exceeded a safe amount, or if the temperature exceeded this, or if just the time exceeds it, it's just going to cut the charging. I always have this on because if a battery's charging for more than 3 hours in my world, something's gone wrong. Okay, so the UI is super complicated. All right, I didn't go into every bit, but now why do we have multiple programs? Well, if you haven't figured it out yet, it's because you're going to set those little parameters up differently for each program. Now, you can print out a little card by the side or just memorize them. I've memorized them. What I know is program 1, so let's go over here. I'll put on program 1 and then I'll hit enter. Okay, so now program 1 is now set to bay 1. What program 1 will do for me is it will charge this thing up to 4.1 and then terminate. And the reason why is because 4.1 is about 90% of the capacity as 4.2, but it puts less strain on the battery. So often, if I think that I'm not going to be using a light immediately, I will charge to 4.1 instead of 4.2. So that one's on 4.1 right now. And that's the reason why I have it program 1 is because 1, I like to charge that way. And 2, it's like a moniker for me, 4.1 program 1, right? Now, the second program I have is, and let's see here, we're on program 4 for bay 2. So let me go down to program 2. This is a storage charge. I do a lot of storage charging. If I'm not using a light for a while, I want it to go to storage charge, which is 3.8. But again, you can set what storage charge is. If you come down here, see it's 3.8, you can set it to 3.75 or whatever you want. Actually, 3.79, right? So that's pretty cool. Also notice that getting there, you have complete control over what the discharge current rate is and all that kind of stuff. All right, so let's just leave this one as storage charge for right now because I'm not using that battery anyways. Now, so I'll press and hold enter so that it changes over to program 2. Now this guy, I want this one to be charged up for my light, but I'm going to charge to full. Well, my charge to full happens to be program 3. And you'll see that I'm charging at 2 amps because I know just that when I throw an 18650 in there, it can handle 2 amps. And the termination is going to be 4.2 like you'd expect. See, 4.2. All right, so I'm going to press and hold. Okay. And by the way, notice that at termination, I don't know if you caught that, the termination is 0.2. Again, this is one of those parameters that is automatically set by when you put the capacity in. All right. Now, 4,000 is not the capacity of this battery. It doesn't really matter. I mean, what I'm saying is it doesn't matter you're not going to break anything if you have it wrong. But just know that if it's expecting a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, it's going to set those terminations more aggressively. So it's 0.2 instead of like 0.15 or 0.10. So, maybe I should actually lower this down to about 3,000, which is what this guy is. But, again, it's not as hard and fast as you might think. Now, so I got the program 1, 2, 3, and then what we'll do for the last one. Let's just go storage again. Actually, no, let's go to, program 9, the one it's on. It is a storage charge, but the reason I put it on 9 is because this one, instead of going to 3.8 volts, it goes to 3.9. So I'll press and hold and enter, and then you got all your modes set up. All right, so just to be clear, bay number 1 here is going to be using program 1. Bay 2 is 2, 3 is 3, and then 4 is 9. Now I press and hold enter. It processes, which it's just gathering information about the battery, polarity, resistance, current voltage. And now it shows all the different programs it's running and what's going on, okay? Notice that number 1 here has an arrow up, which means it's in charge mode. Number 2 has a little infinity sign, that means storage. The inversed arrow right there just means that its charging has finished. I told Bay 1 to charge to 4.1 volts, and it's already 4.11. So it's literally finished already. And that's what that little, inverted symbol means. And notice that its light up here has also gone green, showing that it's ready to be pulled if you need. Also notice the backlit just went out on us. If you don't touch anything for a while, the backlit goes away. Notice that the dot matrix here is completely configurable. I didn't want to mess with it for my video, but I mean, you can make it darker. So, it's got like a 20-point scale and you can adjust that. If you want to stop any one of these bays, you can just press and hold and it beeps. So now it's flashing green and red, which means the program stopped and you can pull it if you want. Now notice that green means the program is completed. The green and red means the program's interrupted. If you want to stop all these at once, you just go down here to the stop and you press and hold on this. Now they're all stopped. Now, the reason why they're green and red, as I said, is because we just interrupted the programs, all right? Now, let me start charging again, show one more feature here. While it's charging, you can press and hold one of these guys, and you can go to a graph about what's happening with that battery. So since number 1 is already at the target voltage, there's a little bit of dip here as it was sensing it, but now you're going to just have a line that goes straight across. We'll come back to this in a second. I mean, this is over time, so we'd have to wait. Let's go to Bay 2, so we'll go up. You'll see that Bay 2 was storage charging to 3.8, which it's pretty close. So it hit 3.8 and then goes across flat because it's just already there. Yes, this graph doesn't have any units on it, but it's a good visual of what's going on with the battery. Now, if you want units, let's get to, connectability. This device works perfectly standalone. But one of the things I love about it is it's got Bluetooth and you have an app that you can run on either iOS or Android, and you can see graphs and numbers right on that. So I charge in the garage, but the Bluetooth makes it all the way through the wall into where my office is. So sometimes I'll just look on my phone to see what the status of the batteries is, if they're done or, if I have to go pull one. But additionally, to just looking at what's going on, you can actually start and execute battery programs on the phone. So, and I don't mean just starting the charge. I mean like setting a program up. You can go in there and say, okay, I want it this voltage, and you can change it all around. On the side here, you'll also notice that it's got a micro USB for connecting it to your computer, so you can run it from the computer. It's got the Bluetooth here, and when you've got it connected by a phone, this lights up blue. This right here is literally just to run another USB device. This is just additional power. So that's all that is. And lastly, let's talk about the power of this thing, power in general. So this thing is 3 amps per bay, which is great because a lot of times these chargers are 3 amps in bay 1 or 3 amps in bay 1 and 2, and the other 2 bays are 1 amp. Or sometimes they're 3 amps in bay 4, but then they all revert to 1 amps if you hit 3 on this one. This one is truly 3 amps per bay. Another real nice feature about the power of this is how you can power it. So it comes with a power brick, and you'll see right here in the back, there's a little DC connector, standard barrel DC connector right there. And the power brick is included. But one of the things I like is if you get something like this, not included, but this is easy enough to come by, little alligator clips to the same DC connector, and you shove it in there. I can then take these alligator clips, put them on a car battery, and this thing will run perfectly fine on a car battery. And the reason I like that is for the obvious reasons of power outages. Let's say there's a power outage, people need flashlights, I didn't have my batteries charged to full. I can just take this guy, walk over to my car, pop the hood, put this on the battery. This thing runs fine. Charge up all my batteries for my flashlights or whatever I'm doing. So that's a really nice thing. Now, that's not specific to this charger. I have several chargers that will operate in the 12 to 18 volts range, and so you can do that. But it's a nice thing to know that this can do it as well. All right, folks, I've barely scratched the surface of what this thing can do, but hopefully you get the idea of what a powerful charger this is. And lastly, I just want to throw in there, and this is kind of a time-sensitive thing. I don't like saying this on videos because, maybe somebody's watching this in a year, but this thing used to be $140. I got it as $120, $119 is what I paid, $119, and I was like so happy that I, got it for a good price. This is being sold right now for a Black Friday sale for $79. I mean, that's a steal. That's incredible. So I just think everyone should go get one of these. It's really the only charger you're going to need. And if a charger comes out that's better than this, that can fit really, really big batteries like this, I mean, I'd be looking at that. That'd be of interest to me. But I also want to point out that I really like a lot of tension on these clips on the battery for, good charging. And this has that. But I also want to point out that on these big batteries, like the 18650s and up, the tension is really good. And as I said, this 21700 just fits like a protected would not. But I'm going to point out that on these little guys like this, there's less tension, right? Because there's a spring in here. Now, it's not that this is still good tension compared to my other chargers, but there's less. And it matters less on batteries like this. But what my concern is if this charger was set up to do 90 millimeters, I'm just concerned that it wouldn't be tight enough on the batteries I do the most. Maybe that's an invalid concern, but it just kind of makes me not really care that this isn't set up for this battery that I hardly ever use. Thank you for joining me on this review of my favorite charger, and hopefully you'll subscribe so you can see my other videos as they come out. See you later.